You are now watching Believe. Do you believe?
What's up, everybody? We are up in here for another episode of Believe in Kentucky. Vinny Hardy here, Aaron Gershon, where all the action is the past week up in Atlanta, man. How's everything in media days? You've been up in all the action. How's it been?
It's been a blast. It's been a lot of fun to get to know some of the beat writers around the SEC that I haven't known or haven't seen in a while. So that's been a lot of fun. And then, the last 3 days have been really exciting hearing from all these coaches. The only ones haven't spoken yet are Tennessee, Texas A&M, and Auburn. So I'll miss those tomorrow. But, man, got plenty of information. Got to talk to some people about their opinions of Kentucky, which for the most part were pretty positive, but we also learned one guy in particular hates Kentucky, and there's a rivalry that none of us knew existed. So that was pretty fun. We'll get into that one, but it was a good time. And then today, Mark Stoops, Will Levis, DeAndre Square, and Kenneth Horsey were all made it down here, and they were great. And I thought really, especially, we knew Will was going to do great, but I thought Kenneth Horsey did a really nice job, and he was great. And DeAndre Square was really enjoying and appreciative to be down here. So it was good catching up with those guys. And Coach Stoops, was himself. He kept things close to the vest. He had some jokes, and he also shared, the same optimism that really everyone else has around Lexington. So it was good. It was a very useful trip, to say the least.
Yeah, man, good stuff. And this was your first media days, right?
Yeah, man. It was, I didn't really know. I knew there was going to be a ton of people. I knew it was going to be action-packed and all that, but I loved it. I loved every second of it. So I'm already excited for this event next year because it was just a great time. Good networking, and then obviously getting interactions with, athletes that you don't get to talk to all year long, and then obviously also get to see the athletes you cover in that setting with the writers that they don't necessarily talk to often. So it was good stuff.
Yeah, so that was my question. I have never been to a media day yet, and so this is your first one, and you were there for Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Like you say, you're not going to go tomorrow. Yep. So the first day, did you do everything the same every day, or did you change things up the way you did it this time? And are there things that you're going to be like, I'm going to do this different next year, or did you change it up day by day?
Oh, that's a good question. I think early, at least the first day, I kind of went with the flow a little bit, not knowing, everything going around. But, I knew I had a job to do. My job was to try to talk to at least one person from each school and get that Kentucky's going to play against this year and get their opinion. So I jumped right in asking Lane Kiffin during his press conference. And then, with Missouri, Nick Roush actually beat me to Eli Drinkwood. So he got that question in, and then I went over and talked to their players. And from there, man, it kind of just took it every day, just trying to talk to one person from each school. And, some on Tuesday when Alabama was in the house, you had a lot more questions for each coach that was up. So I kind of left the coaches alone and went to talk to players from, I guess Tuesday was Vanderbilt. Got to talk to Mike Wright, who awesome guy, by the way. Hard not to root for Mike Wright. And Vanderbilt obviously has a long way to go, but he's a great kid. It was good to talk to him about, the UK game last year. And, he spent time with Will Levis at the Manning Passing Academy. So that was good. And then South Carolina had a good conversation with Zach Pickens, their defensive tackle. Austin Williams, the wide receivers, played against UK 4 times already at Mississippi State. And then today, I had one good conversation, and one he wasn't so happy with me talking Kentucky, but I talked to Georgia's center, Cedric Van Pran. He was awesome. And then Georgia's a Florida offensive lineman, Richard Gouraige. He was not happy because I brought up the fact his team had 8 false starts in Lexington last year. So you could tell it kind of ticked him off a little bit, but you got a job to do. But, man, it was a good time.
And look, y'all can get all this at Believe.com. Go straight to the site. And wherever you get your podcasts, of course, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, all those places as well. And our good friends at the Steel Blue also put every episode of this podcast up on their site too. I like when you were asking him, you kept saying, don't mean to bring up bad memories, but that's
I didn't know how else to phrase it, man. 8 full starts. That's hard to do. That's really hard to do. And he had one of them. But yeah, there was no, a lot of guys that Kentucky has beaten, there's been a lot of credit given, or there's been like, yeah, they do this really well diving into it. But yeah, there was none of that. There was he said that Kentucky had a hot hand that game. So I don't think there's much belief there. And, I tried to poke the bear and ask him if, he thought Florida could get back to kind of dominating Kentucky like they did for 3 decades, and didn't take the bait. That's all right. But no, it was good. And all these kids who were down there, even him, you could really tell they belong down there. They're, leaders of their teams and really good young guys, and they're gonna have a lot of success. I think every single one of them. I didn't see one kid that didn't handle himself well out there.
Same thing for your boy Martez Manuel. I saw. I tried to listen to a lot of the coverage at work on the radio and stuff like that, and I put on the jocks out of Birmingham because they had a lot of stuff going on the radio all day. Got home from work and a question was asked, and there you were up on my TV, so I had to picture and tweet that out. So that's Aaron right there front and center.
Oh no, I got a lot of those text messages this week. It was kind of funny, but I'm not used to that. That's for sure.
Yeah. And so I saw Martez Manuel did a general interview, kind of with Alyssa Lang from the SEC Network. And, just well spoken, good head on his shoulders. They were talking about his black and gold outfit or whatever, and he had some Jordans to match and all that kind of stuff. Then you talked to him and got a little. I mean, he was still nice, but you kind of got a little
very good, my kid. Yeah, no, he was first of all, he was a great kid, and he was nice to be. He didn't have to go in as in depth as he did, but right. That game has been a little chippy the last couple of years. And what made me ask the question the way I did was, if you remember, I think it was 2020, in that COVID shortened year, and there was a play where Larry Roundtree, running back, trucked Kelvin Joseph, and Kelvin Joseph was laying on his backside completely alone, and a bunch of Missouri players just started flexing all over him, and that kind of showed how lifeless Kentucky was in that moment. And it also showed that Missouri was really motivated to beat Kentucky, because I think it was a 5-year winning streak for UK going into that game, and then obviously last year Kentucky got them back again. But there was a lot of pent-up anger from Mr. Manuel. He pretty much, I don't think he necessarily, I think the bad blood doesn't come from a dislike of, I don't know, a certain player. I don't think he dislikes Chris Rodriguez or anyone on the roster. I'm just using Chris as an example. And I think it's more because Kentucky's own Missouri, and he's sick of it. So I think that's where that animosity stemmed from. But yeah, man, he said, I hate that white and blue. And that was something. And obviously Arkansas is a historic rival of theirs. So if he feels Kentucky is a bigger rivalry game, I think that's pretty interesting. And he also, he's a DB, so I asked him about Will, and he was super complimentary. He said that he's a guy that he's talked to his peers, saying he's one of the best quarterbacks he's gone against at the college level, which says a lot. He's been in the SEC for 3 years, and I believe he played against Alabama in 2020, which means he would have played against Mac Jones, who's a first-round pick, obviously, and some real good quarterbacks. So that's a high compliment. So I thought, he was just honest, and that's all you could ask from these kids, honesty. And I was really impressed with the answer. But yeah, I wouldn't want any Kentucky fans thinking he's anything but confident and a good kid, because he is that thing. But it definitely adds some motivation when those two teams meet up in November.
That's right. And y'all follow Aaron at @Gershon99. He's got all the media clips, all the video of the coverage at SEC Media Days, the players he got to talk to. My thing with Manuel, and I said this on Cats Talk Wednesday podcast, we just recorded it. He's born and raised in Como. He's a native. Been watching this team lose to Kentucky since he was in high school. Like you said, he doesn't hate anybody personally. He just kind of fed up with it. He saw CJ Conrad, who's been on this podcast, come in and steal a win right there at the end. I think he speaks for the whole community. He speaks for the whole university.
Yep.
they're all just sick and tired of losing to Kentucky, and I think that's kind of what he kind of revealed to you the other day.
100%, and I think that kind of goes with how Kentucky's still viewed. I don't think that as good as they've been, and there was a lot of, again, there are a lot of compliments that Kentucky got when I asked these questions, especially from Zach Pickens of South Carolina and Van Pran from Georgia. But there's still this view out there from media, and I think, just players alike, that Kentucky's still, Kentucky. They don't think that they're one of the better teams in the SEC. They just think of, the history that Kentucky has, and that's as a loser. I mean, that's true. I mean, there's no hiding from that. So I still think there's that stereotype out there, whether Kentucky likes it or not. I think they probably like it because it's motivating. But so I think his anger, like you said, they're sick of losing to them because they find it in their head. It's like embarrassing because Kentucky's a team that's, historically a loser, but now they're really good and they're beating teams 5 years in a row like they did with Missouri and they did with South Carolina. And, I don't think it's fully set in. The reality is it's a pretty darn good program right now. So I definitely think he was speaking on behalf of Missouri's roster. Like I said, you could tell that game meant a lot to them 2 years ago in 2020 because they had way more energy and came out really motivated to end that streak. When Kentucky came out flat, they kind of just came in and expected to win that game. So I do think he was totally talking for that Missouri locker room and probably, Mizzou's fan base as a whole.
Mm-hmm. And you got to tip your cap to them when they did. They did win that game.
Yeah.
They came out with more energy, took it to
Way
Kentucky.
More.
And as lifeless as Kentucky was, I'm not trying to be biased. Maybe it's going to sound biased. They only won 20-10.
I know.
It wasn't like it was 51-3. And they got all this anger and we're going to end this streak. And Kentucky, if they had gotten it together and mounted one drive, they're in the game. So, okay, you guys won, fine, tip your cap. But 20-10 when you're so
it wasn't
off.
Yeah, no. And it was funny. I was talking to Dick Gabriel about this yesterday or Monday, I forget, whatever. But he said it, obviously he's the sideline reporter for UK on radio. Football wise, and he told me that was one of the most lifeless sidelines Kentucky has had in the last couple of years, like since they started playing really good football the last 5-6 years. So I think that's pretty telling for a guy who's on the sideline every single game for the last 30 years. Whatever DG's been up to, he's obviously the man. So I think just Missouri took advantage of the fact Kentucky was lifeless, and Kentucky's offense that year was, let's just say, it was terrible. It was a terrible offense. Unfortunately, Terry Wilson never recovered from that patellar tendon and wasn't the same athlete he was in 2018 or even those first two games of 2019. So it was just a trap game that there's never much energy in that stadium from what I've heard. I've never been, but I'll be there obviously this fall. But yeah, it was a trap game and Missouri took advantage. You tip your cap, but I mean, if you look at the last 6-7 years of Missouri, Kentucky, it's completely one-sided. Last year's game was closer than it probably should have been, but I still think Kentucky, offensively especially, kind of owned that game.
Yeah. So yeah, definitely on the verge of blowing them out last year. C-Rob fumbles at the goal line.
Yep.
So the score was a lot closer than the game actually was last year. Sure.
Yep, exactly. And first SEC game too, so there's a lot to work out in that first game. There's a lot of, you haven't hit SEC guys yet all year. It's been a year, so that's always a tough game, first SEC game of the year, and that's what it was last year. And
you mentioned that stadium. I haven't been either, but you look in end zones and on TV, people out there sitting on rocks. They don't even have.
At least Vandy's got bleachers. and I feel bad for Vandy. That place, it's not SEC. It's not the same level as what we have in Lexington, and definitely not what they have down here in Georgia or Alabama. But yeah, man, you're right. That Missouri atmosphere just looks weird. I'm definitely curious to make my first trip out there in November, but who knows? Maybe Missouri, like you said, maybe they're going to come out in full force after those comments. Who knows? And that's going to be for Kentucky a big trap game because especially if things go as planned and they're still in the SEC East race. I mean, that game, and then you have 2 weeks where you play Missouri and Vanderbilt, the two teams that you feel are the most winnable games on your schedule, SEC wise, I would say.
Yeah.
And then you got Georgia after that. So that game's lurking. So by then, it's going to be hard to turn the blinders off. So it's going to be that's a real interesting matchup. That it wasn't that interesting, but it sure is now. And you got to think about that part of it too, with Georgia lurking at that point in the season.
And you saw, like you said, it's going to be interesting because DeAndre Square, I think, quote tweeted your tweet with November 5th,
Yep.
like with the smiley face. We know the day, see you then. So yeah,
See you then.
It did make the rounds,
Oh man, it was great making the rounds. And Lonnie Johnson was saying, "Well, we don't lose to Mizzou," and then Missouri fans were in his comments because he's on the Chiefs now, and that's only an hour 45 up the road. And then Lynn Bowden commented saying, "I think I ran for 200 on them," which he did. And then I think Marquand McCall commented asking if it was a rob. Oh, that was Calvin Taylor commented that, and Marquand McCall said so. It just blew up with the former Wildcats kind of making fun of it a little bit. But again, I don't think there were any bad intentions with the kid who gave the answer. I thought he was just very honest. I also thought he was confident in himself, and he was also very complimentary of the quarterback. There was no, he's overrated, any of that. There was a ton of respect shown there. So really good kid. And you got to I love the honesty. I love it.
Yeah. So the media days historically been in Hoover, Alabama at the Winfrey Hotel for years. At the College Football Hall of Fame now. So what is that place like? I haven't gotten to see that yet. So
yeah, it's pretty cool. I can't say I got to go through the whole building because they had the top floor closed off, but just walking around the main hallway and then the second floor where they had Radio Row and seeing some of the Heisman stuff and the recent Heisman stuff with Bryce Young, his collection of stuff just added it. It's pretty cool. It's definitely something to check out if you're in Atlanta. It's not something to like go make a trip out of just for that, but it was pretty cool. And I really like the setup. It's in this like turf field area that they have downstairs, and there's a ton of room, so you didn't feel like you were in a cluster of reporters, which was something I was afraid of. It was just going to be a big media scrum, but it wasn't that. It was well spread out, and it was just really well organized. I mean, the SEC does an amazing job with these events. I thought they did a great job at the SEC tournament down in Tampa this year. I thought this was really well done, and it's a cool environment. It's right in downtown Atlanta off Centennial Park, which is really cool. A lot of history there with the Olympics. So it's definitely worth it if you're in Atlanta. It was a really fun time.
That's awesome, man. So yeah, right all up in all the action. Anything else that caught your eye or jumped out at you?
Yeah, a couple things. I think just talking about Kentucky, and I think for me, this trip was more about getting to know the people out of Kentucky and their perspectives, because we'll and hopefully you'll be there too when Kentucky has media day in a couple of weeks. I'm not sure if you're going to be there, but Kentucky's media day is coming up, so we're going to talk to everybody then, and that's going to be a really good time. So I was kind of more focused on the other teams and their players, but a couple notes I thought were interesting from Mark Stoops today when he kind of just met with the locals only was obviously nothing new on Chris Rodriguez, but he did talk about D. Beckwith, one of the running backs they just picked up, that they are going to try him at different positions, and one position I would keep an eye on. He didn't want to go into too much detail on it, but I would look at that H-back role that Justice Dingle was working at, that fullback spot. I think that could be something that's interesting, where you can kind of deposit him as a running back or as a threat as a blocker, and then of course as a threat in the passing game. So I think that's an interesting spot. So that one caught my eye. Also, what was the other thing? Will Levis pretty much told everyone that Dane Key will be a starter. Yes. So that was exciting, I think, for everybody, because he was the hype of the spring. He had a great spring game, obviously, and he's a Lexington kid. So if he flourishes here, he's going to become a fan favorite real quick. So I thought that was really telling. But he spoke like a captain when he said it too. He said he has to earn it every day. It wasn't like, you're a starter, it's your job now. So I thought Will was really good on that topic there. And also talking about him with an interesting one more. I asked it as a Giants fan, but I did have to ask him because he was at the Manning Academy if Eli asked him at all about Wandale, and he said yes, but he also had a long conversation with Joe Shane, the Giants GM, and he kind of laid out how they envisioned using Wandale and said that was really exciting. And the fact they had a long meeting, that's interesting to me. Giants could be in that quarterback market next April, so that caught my attention, especially because it's my team. So
we talked about that last week. Like if
I know,
maybe,
maybe,
sure enough,
maybe.
yeah.
So I'd have to go back and listen. I just recorded that and video it, but yeah, he definitely met with Joe Shane for a little bit and was really excited about what he had to say on how they plan to use Wandale. So had me excited as a fan, and also as the reporter side of me. Maybe there is some interest there between the Giants and Will Levis there.
Yeah, and you're going back to the receivers with Dane Key coming in and impressing as a true freshman. We've seen what they've done with the running game for all the physical pounded running game. The running back position's been solid for a long time. The big blue wall has gained a reputation over the years, and we'll see how they plug in the tackle spots and see if they keep it going. Got the quarterback spot with Levis. The tight ends have done some stuff. You get Upshaw back, and so they should be good.
I think Isaiah Cummins is going to be really good. I really like him. I think that position change has been really good because he was just stuck in that wide receiver depth chart, and they moved him to a spot where he could make some plays.
Yeah, and so we just been kind of waiting on the wide receiver room to.
Yeah,
it's been there for just whoever wants to take it. Wandale stepped in and took on a lot of the work, missed out on Ali. But whether it's Dane Key, a young, fresh face freshman, or some of the older guys, whoever wants to jump in there, it's there for the taking. And that's the one position group offensively that we still just kind of waiting on to kind of catch up with everything else.
Yeah, no, you made some really good points there. One thing on the offensive line, it sounds like Deandre Buford is going to be the guy at left tackle. Apparently, he had a really good spring. If you remember, he was the guy taking the starting reps this spring, and I believe he was the starter in the spring game too. So it does sound like he has the edge over Keontae Goodwin, but he's got to keep it up because Keontae Goodwin's coming, and he'll play his role on this team, and obviously he'll be a big factor in the future here. But that was an interesting one. Mark Stoops really gave a lot of credit to DeAndre today. But back to the receivers, I think Tavion Robinson's super important just because he's the old guy in the room, even though he hasn't been here in Lexington. He's played a lot of football in the ACC, and the ACC is obviously a pretty good league. He's done a lot of good things as a punt returner, and he's been a primary option at receiver. So I think they really need him to be a dog in that slot. They need him to kind of, obviously, I don't know if I don't think it's possible to ask for Wandale production at all. But you can't ask for him to be the number one option given his experience. So I think he's a really important piece of the puzzle this year. And all the reviews have been pretty good on him. So I'm very interested to see how he pans out. He's going to be really important. And then behind, Key is probably going to be outside. And then I think I heard some good things today from Will about Barry and Brown, who's a 4-star recruit. They love Jordan Anthony's track speed, but if you've been following up with him, he's been doing track competitions this summer, so he's a little behind in the playbook. So I don't really know how much he's going to factor in this year. Maybe on specials, but I'm not really sure. They like Brandon White, one of the incoming freshmen speed, but he's a young guy who just got here. And then I don't really know I should have asked, but I didn't, about Kel Crowdis. I don't know what his status is. Yeah. So then the other two guys I think you look at are Chris Lewis, who was kind of a guy that was being hyped up by Will this spring. Haven't really heard about much about him since. I know he had a drop in the spring game that was a little tough, but it's one play. So I'm interested to see what the talk about him is at Media Day in a few weeks in Lexington. And then the other guy is DeMarcus Harris, who he's played quite a bit, and he was very honest during his press conference this spring. If you remember, he didn't really play much at the beginning of last year, but by the end of the year, including in the Citrus Bowl, he was one of the, I'd say he was probably wide receiver 3 on the depth chart behind Josh and Wandale there. And I think he finished the year with 150 yards, with almost all those coming like the last 6 games. And when he was asked why, it didn't really click for him till late, he was like, well, they let me play. So he was in the doghouse early last year, and he's had drop issues, so that kind of makes sense. So Mark Stoops said today he's really important to this team. So I think the two X factors in the room are DeMarcus Harris and Chris Lewis, because you have a lot of upside in other guys, but you need some guys who are just role guys who will make the plays when their number is called. And I think those are two guys that need to do that and are really important to this offense. And then you just need Tavion to be the wide receiver one, and Dane, you can't ask too much from him because he's a freshman, but man, they're gonna throw all they can at him because they're really high on him.
That's right. I don't know if I said it last week or not. Had Mitch Brown on from Fox 56, and he had covered Tavion in high school, and the word he used was electric for that dude. So
Yeah.
Not trying to put all that pressure on him, but it sounds like he's as capable as one could be to come in and fill that spot.
And what's good is you can put a little more pressure on him because he's been around. And I know he hasn't been around here, but Virginia Tech, there's expectations down there for sure. So you can lean on him a little bit, I think. And you don't want to put, like you said, definitely don't want to put too much pressure on him and say you got to be Wan'Dale Robinson, because that's impossible. That's literally had never been done before in Kentucky history. But I do think you could push him a little bit because he's here. They brought him in to be WR1 wide receiver one, right? So he's gonna be counted on. And it's crazy. The stat to me that I brought up to Will when I did my interview with him a few weeks ago on the phone was, he lost 2,000 receiving yards. That's how much Wan'Dale and Josh Ellie combined for, a little over 2,000. And then not to mention losing Justin Rigg, who was a security blanket at times last year at the tight end spot. So they got a lot of production to make up for, but I think, as Mark Stoops puts it, the talent is there, the experience is not.
Right. So yeah, it's it is that time, and it is there for taking for the receivers as far as that goes. So
100%.
Definitely see. Recruiting, on the recruiting note too, Anthony Brown comes in, they get that commitment, nephew of the legend, John Legend, and John Legend even put a tweet out about my.
That was crazy, right?
That was, man, unbelievable.
Yeah, that was pretty cool, and that's, I've heard really good things about him. He's obviously was a highly coveted guy. Just look at the hats that were on the table, all big names, and 2-4. I think it's really telling that they've been able to get 2 4-star receivers already. I think they're really doing a good job selling the NFL pro style offense. And obviously Will's not going to be here after this year, but that now there's a confidence that Kentucky could go out and get a big time quarterback on the market because of, the pro style offense. And I think, I really like Bo Allen, but I'm not quite sure if he's the guy who's going to be the starter ever. Nothing against him. I'm just not sure they're sold on him, given the fact they did go get Will for multiple years. So I do wonder if, this time next year, we're getting to know a transfer portal quarterback who's going to start. And I think that maybe that idea mixed with this NFL style offense is attractive to guys like Anthony Brown and Shamar Porter, who are, 4-star commits. That's a really important position. You don't want to read too much into the star level, but I think the skill positions, you can read into it because those are guys who usually pan out.
Is it just arm strength for Bo Allen? Is that the main thing, or what are those factors?
Yeah, I think it's arm strength, and I think it's he's barely played. I mean, I think nowadays more than ever, especially with Kentucky being in a win now situation, they're not like a rebuilding program anymore. I think you need to experience at that quarterback position, and I think that's why you see the quarterback roulette every single year, or where these guys are a big name leaves and another one comes in from another school. I mean, you look at Oklahoma and what they've been able to do in the transfer portal with Jalen Hurts, and this year Dylan Gabriel coming in to replace Spencer Rattler and Caleb Williams. You've had LSU and Texas A&M both have guys who played in the conference now. I think Max Johnson's up at Texas A&M. LSU has Jaden Daniels from Arizona State. Zach Calzada moving from A&M to Auburn. I mean, it's Adrian Martinez. I mean, the list goes on and on. And I definitely think that if they don't have enough confidence in Bo Allen, that he's absolutely going to be the guy next year, kind of like they didn't with, obviously, they didn't have enough confidence last offseason that he was going to be the guy, or Joey Gatewood was going to be the guy, and they went out and found Will Levis. I mean, the transfer portal ain't going anywhere. There are going to be names that enter, and I really think that, unless Bo blows them away. And another thing on that, Coach Scangarello, the offense coordinator, Rich Scangarello, said this, that it's an open competition for the backup job. So Bo Allen's having trouble beating out Kaya Shurin and Deuce Hogan, who's actually here as a walk-on, even though he's a former 4-star recruit from Iowa. Mm-hmm. So, again, I don't want to pile on Bo Allen here, but he's not even sold as the backup. I don't know if you could sell him as the quarterback. So I think these recruits are looking, hey, they're going to go to the portal and get another Will Levis.
Interesting stuff. Basketball, real quick. The basketball team did a tour of the state, kind of got everybody out there, got Cal and the players out with, Moorhead and Georgetown and different places doing autographs and seeing the fans and just kind of that whole feel good for everybody, which was cool to see. Coaches out there with them and all that's good stuff. Yeah. Big Blue Madness campouts are back, just kind of going back to the Wayback Machine on a lot of stuff.
Yeah. I think Cal's gotten killed lately, let's be honest. I mean, after you lose to St. Peter's right after the worst season in everyone's lifetime, right? You're going to get a lot piled on you because it's national championship or bust when it comes to UK basketball. But I think for a guy who has I think he kind of has to prove himself again. I think he needs to earn the trust of the Kentucky fan base back. And I think that's all, I think the fire Cal stuff's too far, but I think it's all justified for fans to want to get him to earn that trust back. And I think from, this tour, I think being around fans, I think that was important. The campouts, bringing that back and trying to revamp Big Blue Madness, which hasn't been the same the last couple of years. I think that was good. And he talked about that and he's made good on that. And I think most importantly, it's all buzz for now, but the recruiting trail seems hot, like hotter than it's been in years. And it's interesting to me because I kind of liked how they built last year's roster through the portal. This year, it's such a weird roster because there are 6 returners and we never have that here. But it seems like next year they're going back to, we're going to get every 5-star guy and we're going to line up and we're going to have all the talent in the world. We just got to put it together. So it's kind of fun to see that come back, but man, but this time how they're doing it is we're going to get 4 top 10 guys. I mean, you already have Dillingham committed, who's the top point guard in the country. I think DJ Wagner is leaning Kentucky's way. We'll see. It was in Louisville's hand for a bit, but Cal's known DeJuan Wagner's father, DJ Wagner's father, DeJuan, his whole life. So that's going to be hard to beat. And then you see, Justin Edwards, I think, is going to pick Kentucky on Monday. Another top 10 guy. So Rob Holland, I mean, they're hot right now on the recruiting trail. So that's how you win back the fan base. You get the big names, you get in front of them, and you try to bring back some of the things they love. And I think maybe I thought the one thing he did this offseason that was like, come on, man, was kind of blame the facilities. I mean, I get the facilities may need an upgrade, but they've been renovated in the last 15 years. They're still pretty darn nice compared to where you go around the country. And I think that might have rubbed fans off the wrong way. And he's kind of backed off that a little bit lately and put more focus on, like you said, the Big Blue Madness, this tour that he's doing right now, getting the Bahamas trip. I think that's really important, even though it's $1 billion to go to it, but just getting the team on TV early and then hitting the recruiting trail hard. So I think if for a makeup off season, which is how I'd kind of describe this one, I'd give Cal like an A-. Everything but the facilities talk is really, I think, working.
Yeah, that's for sure. Sure. Let me talk about our Lots of Rain watches. I got one more thing to hit you with it's dear to your heart before we wrap it up.
Yeah.
LotsOfRain.com. Look, own timeless watches with pride, built and designed for watch enthusiasts. Lots of Rain watches are made to last with a careful selection of materials and components. This focus on detail from the design to your wrist provides our customers with a great watch at any price. They got the Seafarer, the Nautica, the Subnautica, so many different styles and designs for men and women, formal, casual, whatever you want to do. LaTouraine.com, LA-TOURAINE.com. See what our man Dave has got. He's been on this podcast before to talk about them. These are extremely fine crafted watches, and you'll definitely be satisfied with the product that you get. So y'all go to La Touraine, tell them you heard about them on the Believe in Kentucky podcast with Vinny Hardy and Aaron Gershon. LaTouraine.com. Your New York Giants got everybody fired up because they're going back to the old uniforms that Lawrence Taylor and Phil Simms used to wear.
Yeah.
This for 2 games, but that's 2 games that y'all will be proud, right?
Well, I wish it was 8 or 9. Had the all home games and the game in Dallas every year. I wish they were where those are. I mean, they're sweet, and obviously some of the better moments in Giants history have happened in those. So I've always liked the blue and white, obviously the old road uniforms that they wore in the 80s, 90s, early 90s. They've had those as the color rush alternate, but the blues back too, man. Oh, they're beautiful. A lot of good days that I obviously wasn't alive for, but I grew up learning about those Giants teams from my dad, and man, those are sweet. They're this is a rebuilding year. Obviously, you just want to see improvement from the Giants, and you're already seeing it, I think, in the coaching and in the way they're running things at the GM level. So give us something, and giving us those uniforms, I'll take it. They'll be stealing my money with those.
You're gonna do the end zone in MetLife.
Yeah.
So I saw all y'all are fired up and saw the video and saw Saquon and all that. So I was like, yeah, I gotta ask him about that when we get on here tonight.
I'm pretty pumped up about those. That's definitely a money stealer right there. They put those on Fanatics like the second that video came out. I was like, are you kidding? You're ready? You're taking my money within 5 minutes. Like, come on.
Absolutely. Man, any other news and notes or little stuff you want to get out here from your first time at the media days in amongst everybody?
No. Yeah, I would just say that this is a confident Kentucky team, man. I mean, they really feel good about where they're headed. They have a ton of trust in their quarterback. Again, this is the most hyped quarterback Kentucky's had since Tim Couch. There's no other way to put it. I think he's handled himself every way you could ask for, and yeah, I would just say for the guys who are predicting Kentucky to finish 5th, 4th, I don't see them being a bust. I really don't see how it's going to happen. I think there's too much confidence in this program. There's too much momentum. This is their best chance maybe to get to Atlanta that they're ever going to have, because as good as Georgia is and as good as they recruit, 9 NFL guys drafted on the defense alone. And not to mention another one who had legal issues who would have been a first-round pick. That's not going to be with the team, and Adam Anderson. So, you really have 10 guys off that defense. So, Kentucky's got a window, and they got to take it, and they know that.
Yeah, that's for sure. And Georgia's schedule is still pretty easy. It's still pretty easy, but there's one stretch that I'll get real quick that someone brought to my attention. Someone who actually told me today that he has picked Kentucky to win the SEC East, which was too bold for me, but I respect it. A non-Kentucky reporter, believe it or not, was bringing to my attention a 4-game stretch that they have at one point. But, now that I'm looking at it, I don't really know what he's talking about because that schedule's not bad. So it's got to be Florida, Tennessee, Mississippi State, Kentucky. That's
probably it. Though Mississippi State's a challenge, that's a tough place to play, and they play good teams really well. So maybe that's what he's thinking. But I don't think Tennessee's. I think Tennessee's defense is going to be the one team that can neutralize that offense. So, and then it really could though. If Kentucky takes care of business, it should come down to a game in Lexington on November 19th. And if it does, that might be the best atmosphere we've ever had at a Kentucky football game.
Yeah, and it's hopefully it's typical Lexington weather, which is nothing to you, but
nothing to me.
Guys from Georgia, that's we've seen really cold, snowy games especially when Kentucky used to play Tennessee last game of the year, and now you get Georgia near the end, and if if Kentucky handles business like we hope, then you get Georgia coming in late. That's
You know what they need? They need that monsoon that was in Georgia 2 years ago, but they were stuck with Lynn Bowden at quarterback. So there was like they were so limited because they already had to run every play, but then they really had to run every play. They need that monsoon now that they have a real quarterback. Not that obviously Lynn was great, but a quarterback who still can play through those conditions with the defenses already. That type of weather, Kentucky can win that game. I think if they played that 2019 game with the 2021 roster, Kentucky wins. I'm sold on that.
because they had dropped a touchdown in the rain.
Yes,
Game.
Chris Rodriguez.
C-Rod
Yes,
dropped a sure TD, and look, the staff makes no bones about it. Stoops, the big dog, they've all look. Everybody's got Georgia in their sights, but
it's circled. It's
but yeah,
circled.
we beat Missouri. We passed South Carolina. We're starting to beat Tennessee. We're starting to beat Florida. Georgia's the last hurdle. And 14-3 in Lexington a couple years ago. These scores are not.
They're not. And I still think, and Kirby Smart said it after, Kentucky played Georgia pretty well last year. Another score, Georgia was a beast last year. I mean, one of the best, I think, college football teams ever. I don't think that's hyperbole. Kentucky played them pretty well. They played them pretty well. If that game was later in the year when you know both teams were a little beat up and Kentucky had more time to get ready for that one, it could have even been a different result. So I think, especially with the game in Lexington and like you said, the variables with the weather, man, that's Georgia can't be feeling like that's a absolute W in the column like it's been in prior years.
Yeah. And as far as their schedule, that's the fourth game of Georgia's gauntlet for the Tennessee.
Yeah, I was looking
Florida,
at
Tennessee,
I was,
Mississippi State. So
if you want to see a gauntlet, look at Arkansas' schedule. That's a gauntlet.
Exactly. And Missouri too. Missouri has a couple of gauntlets.
But did you see Arkansas? Arkansas's non-conference games are BYU and Cincinnati. like what are they doing to themselves? And I mean, and they play in the West, and I believe their SEC East opponent is not old. It's Missouri every year, and then they have a crossover game with South Carolina, who's like the media darling. So yeah, always.
Well, man, Aaron, I think we got in quite a bit in this episode and got all your coverage, all your good interviews, all the content from right there in the heart of media days in Atlanta. I know you got a vacation coming up as well that you're looking forward to, so I hope you enjoy that. Be safe heading out of there, and man, look forward to hollering at you for another episode here on Believe in Kentucky. Enjoying having you. Know the listeners are as well. Look, Gershon99, y'all, and at Believe in Kentucky on Twitter. Follow us and interact with us. There's certain guests you want to have, tweet at us and say, hey, maybe try to get such and such. We'll
absolutely
do our best to get them on. We've got a fun season coming up, but we'll put the books on, put the wraps on this episode, man. Appreciate you, Aaron. And look, everybody go and subscribe and rate and review and all that good stuff. It's been another episode of Believe in Kentucky, and we will catch everybody next week. Y'all have a good evening.